What's up, Whisper Nation? We're live. We're a little bit late today. We apologize, but we are excited to bring you this awesome show. You're not going to want to miss it. These are 5 running backs that are currently being overdrafted, in our opinions, and that you're going to maybe want to stay away from or avoid in drafts. It's going to be a wild discussion. Things are going to get heated. I already know. Some veins are going to be touched in this episode, and you're not going to want to miss out because these guys are some big names right here on the Fantasy Whispers.
Right here.
Big trap.
Right, Johnny. We're talking 5 overdrafted running backs, but I'd like to talk to Whisper Nation here. If you're seeing our face, if you're hearing our voice, go ahead and share this on whatever platform you are on because it helps with the algorithms, helps us grow the channel and continue to put out daily fantasy football content. If you're new to the Fantasy Whispers, consider giving us a follow or a subscribe based on whatever platform you're on. You can find all of our content over at thefantasywhispers.com. That's kind of our main hub for everything there. We've got articles. We've got our draft kit up for pre-sale right now, which you've only got 8 days left to go get. So make sure you go do that. And you can get everything over there at the Fantasy Whispers. We got articles. We got headlines. We got Tom Islov joining us here on the live saying, what's up, guys? And Johnny, we're going to talk top 5. Well, not top 5, but 5 running backs that we think are being overdrafted right now. I was given the assignment of 3 running backs. You have 2. So together we're going to talk about guys and whether we think they are being overdrafted. Look, there's going to be a lot of talk here about, Big Travy hates this guy. Johnny doesn't like this guy. I don't think that's the case. I think we like a lot of these guys' talents. Look, they're in the NFL. They play great football. Maybe they're on a good team. It's really about situation. It's really about opportunity. And at the end of the day, it's going to be about ADP. For all of our ADP today, we're going to be talking based on 4for4fantasy.com, which is kind of a collective industry standard for ADP. So when we mention ADP, that's what we'll be using. But before we jump into this, Johnny, and before we get even into the news and notes, I got to ask you how you're feeling after that win last night. The Suns in an epic instant classic last night. DeAndre Ayton with the alley-oop. That was an incredible finish. Even with the refs trying to slow it down, take forever, they got it done.
Yeah, Scott Foster reffing was. Don't even get me started on him. But yeah, I appreciate that. Appreciate all of the people who are also Suns fans that follow us. I am a diehard. That was Travis. I'm not gonna lie to you, dude. That was the greatest play I've ever seen in Suns history. I will also say that my wife was very mad at me because I would not stop yelling. And I refused to apologize. I said, I will not apologize for being a sports fan and witnessing what we just witnessed. It was spectacular. So we like to do golf claps on this show. So golf clap out to my boys. 2 games away from the finals. Hopefully we can make it. But Travis, that's not why people made it to this show.
Yeah, that's right.
They made it to this show.
You'd be talking all day long if we let you about those Phoenix Suns and how hot it's getting over there in the desert. Yeah. But we do need to talk about some hot takes here, and that is 5 overdrafted running backs. But before I do, I want to get into some news and notes. Whisper Nation, you know how we do this. We're going to run through some of the news and nuggets, and then I'm going to ask Johnny what he thinks the biggest, most impactful piece of news is for fantasy football. So we're getting into that time of the year, Johnny, where we're talking about puff pieces. We're talking about beat writers saying, oh, this guy's going to be 1,000 and 1,000. And this is a beat writer. This isn't a guy who actually has played football or is a, coach in the NFL. He has no idea what opportunity is going to be there, but we still appreciate the beat writers and they do their job very, very well. All right, some news here. James Robinson, the favorite, is the headline here. SI.com, John Shipley, who I'll be talking about later as well. Jacksonville Jaguars running back James Robinson is expected to be the top running back on the depth chart. Offensive coordinator Darrell Bevell has shown a past tendency to give more of his offense's rushing focus back to similar skill sets as Robinson. In the past, Robinson is the best pass blocker of the group and is functional as a wide receiver. I mean, we had talked about this before with Robinson being an underrated wide receiver out of the backfield. Continuing on the Jacksonville Jaguars train, Laviska Shenault, also a standout performer. Sources ESPN.com. Jacksonville Jaguars wide receiver Laviska Shenault has consistently been making plays during the offseason workouts and showed growth as a receiver, according to ESPN.com's Michael Duraco. So some interesting news there for Visca truthers, myself as a Visca owner in Dynasty like that as well. In New England, rookie quarterback Mac Jones to push
Who?
Cam Newton. Mac Jones. Albert Breer of SI.com reports that Patriots rookie quarterback Mac Jones has done enough in spring practices to push Cam Newton for the starting job in training camp. Johnny, that might be to your chagrin. We'll ask you later if that's the biggest headline here, but we know that Cam Newton is a guy that could he get it all together? Could he not have COVID? Could he have better weapons? Maybe isn't an upside QB this year in fantasy, but if Mac Jones is pushing him, not great news there. Out of Pittsburgh, rookie running back Harris set up to be a star, and this is per Ed Bouchette of The Athletic. Ed Bouchette from The Athletic reports the Pittsburgh Steelers have found a new commitment to the run game in 2021. Rookie running back Najee Harris was selected in the first round and could have a large role from day one, setting him up to be a star in the NFL. This headline, I just crack up at it. It's like, oh, did you just figure out who Najee Harris is and that he had high draft capital? I don't get it. But yeah, that's right in line with what we thought when we were talking, basically what you thought, Johnny, when we were talking during the NFL draft during our live stream. And a couple more pieces of news here. Antonio Brown's probation has ended early. That's per Ian Rappaport. It was a year early, so that's something to keep in mind. Dave Montgomery worked on his speed. This is another one that cracks me up. I don't know how they do this. See, so The Athletic reports that Chicago Bears running back David Montgomery worked with a speed coach this offseason. He expects the third-year pro to surpass the numbers Montgomery posted in 2020. Don't know how you work on your speed. Maybe it's a bunch of hip abductors. I really don't know, but apparently
it's weight. Is it the weights or the parachute? You like run with that all day?
I guess that's how you do it. I'm not sure, Johnny. I'd have to ask you as the fastest fantasy whisperer on the show today, how you work on your speed.
I mean, I don't know if that's saying much. I don't know how fast I truly am, Travis, but I don't really work on my speed. I don't know.
Fair enough. Well, Victor Fur of The Athletic also reporting that tight end Darren Waller is to surpass his 2020 numbers. We had our buddy Jay, the fantasy football plug, also put a video out on this saying that he doesn't doubt it. He's been in a lot of talks with Darren Waller over the offseason, and Waller just seems to be poised and ready to continue this breakout campaign of a guy. And we're very high on Darren Waller over here at TFW as well. So, Johnny, when I list all these off, the Jacksonville news, Pittsburgh, we got New England in there. What headline to you do you think makes the most impact this year for fantasy football in 2021?
I do. Well, I mean, the Darren Waller news is very interesting to me because I was already projecting him to be just, around as good as he was last year. I might go and, slightly bump him up a little bit more because I continuously hear this fact that they want to even use him and utilize him even more. And which is wild. And, obviously he's not coming off the board as the number one overall tight end. So I do think there's tremendous value in Waller, but I don't want to bring him up as the overall story that I want to talk about, Travis. I want to talk about, Najee Harris, excuse me, because I want to point out that I do think that some of the stuff is important as far as, the beat reporters and stuff. And I'm not saying we read into Najee Harris is going to be a complete star because like Travis said, you're just now realizing how good Najee Harris is. But I do think the important fact
and really not even how good he is, just the opportunity, right? The outright opportunity for fantasy here.
Exactly. And I think that's more so the key piece in all of this, because what's interesting, Travis, is the Pittsburgh Steelers have a new offensive coordinator, Matt Canada. He was promoted. He was the quarterback coach for Ben Roethlisberger last year. However, he's never had a true chance as an offensive coordinator in the NFL. He's only done it in college, and that was at Maryland. Now, at Maryland, he did, he ran the ball a lot, and that's what he's just been saying in practice. Ben has even come out and said, hey, this playbook's way different. I'm not used to these kinds of things, and they should use a lot more motion and which will help the running back as well. I expect them to run heavy in this offense, and I think Najee Harris is going to be one of those guys that is going to really explode this year.
Yeah, just on volume alone. Now, there's some issues with the line. They didn't do a lot to fix the offensive line, but just on volume alone, if we're talking a guy who's got a path to 300 touches, yeah, you got Derrick Henry, you've got Zeke up there, CMC, all those guys. Najee Harris is in that list of a guy with a clear path to 300 touches. So, yeah, could he be bad? But you're not having to draft him where we drafted a guy like CEH last year in the first round yet. We'll see if these puff pieces start to drive him up even further up the board. But I imagine he won't get that high, right? Because we'll have two things going here. One, it's not the Pittsburgh Steelers are not the Kansas City Chiefs. They're not Pat Mahomes. And two, we already just saw last year CEH do this to us and burn us. So I doubt we're going to be drafting Najee Harris that high. So I really like that he's going to probably stay underdrafted as opposed to some of the guys we're going to talk about that are overdrafted. But before we get into those guys, I got to tell you guys why I look like a flippin' haggard bum right now. All right. The draft kit is on pre-sale. It's that time of year again, Whisper Nation. Our draft kit is launching soon. And it's going to be better than ever this year. Our draft kit is fully loaded with premium player projections and rankings, consistency charts with over 3 years worth of data, cheat sheets, strength of schedule charts, and so much more. The TFW draft kit will be on sale July 1st for just $15. But if you pre-order right now, you can get the kit at an incredible price of $10. Head on over to thefantasywhispers.com. Get your kit today. We'll drop that link in the chat. But guys, Johnny wearing it a lot better than I am right now, but we've been up late trying to work on this kit and get it all dialed in, right, Johnny?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Hey, I have my good days. You have your good days. Yeah, I have my bad days too. I had it the other day, but yeah, we're cranking this thing. It's awesome. It really is awesome. There's a lot of great information in there, and we will. It's a Charles Barkley guarantee. We will help you dominate your draft.
Yeah, we've already got a bunch of people on pre-sale getting it. We got a bunch of people in the DMs trying to get repeat as champions under the TFW umbrella. So let's get you that hardware. Let's have you dominate your draft. And part of dominating your draft, Johnny, is going to use that cheat sheet in the draft kit. And part of that cheat sheet is guys we think you should not draft. And that's what we came in today. 5 running backs that you should probably avoid or look at maybe passing for another position. Based on their ADP and based on what we think is going to happen. And so I'm going to start us off. And I thought we'd start off with a bang here, Johnny, because as Whisper Nation knows, if they listen to the show, and if you don't listen, you'll soon find out that nobody is a more DeAndre Swift truther than my boy Johnny here. And I want to say right now, I have no knock against DeAndre Swift's talent. There are just so many warning signs here for me that are screaming he is probably being drafted too high. And so we'll jump into that now, and then I'll let Johnny, of course, rebuttal because I know most assuredly he probably will. The big narratives coming out of Detroit over the last couple weeks, Anthony Lynn, Jamal Williams, this love affair that he's got going for him. They brought in Todd Gurley for a visit. We thought, okay, they're not sold on DeAndre Swift being the guy, the full bell cow back. And now Johnny's counterpoint to that has always been he doesn't need to be, right? He can live off efficiency. They're going to definitely use him in the passing game. I am just not sold that this Lions offense is going to be good enough. If we look at the last four years, Anthony Lynn as head coach and kind of the shot caller over in the Chargers, they finished 18th, 21st, 7th, and 13th in points per game over the last 4 seasons. Sure, that 7th is great, but everything else outside the top 12 in points per game. And then if you look at rushing, look, Anthony Lynn, running backs coach with Buffalo before he got the head coaching job with the Chargers. Anthony Lynn is some running back whisperer. He's going to go ahead and explode the running game. And DeAndre Swift has never had a coach that's going to be able to bring him to that level. This is the yards per game in the last 4 seasons with Anthony Lynn. 15th, 28th, 14th, and 23rd. Not very inspiring numbers as an offense under Anthony Lynn. But then if we talk about give some credence to the 1A, 1B with Jamal Williams. And I know what we're going to say, like Jamal Williams can't really carry DeAndre Swift's jockstrap. We get that. But the point is that Williams has had 100-plus carries and 25 receptions each of his first 4 seasons. He's already ran and gotten these kind of numbers with Aaron Jones in a much better offense with a much better quarterback. Swift, only 1 game over 15 carries all last season. You look at this offense. That's the big thing for me. Johnny and Whisper Nation. I just don't see a path where Detroit is going to be good enough to support the splitting of this backfield the way it projects to be. I mean, 25 receptions a year, not a ton, but really not anything to laugh at as a running back for Jamal Williams, which means he will cut into some of Swift's production in the passing game. And the offense is only projected to have 5 wins. You got Jared Goff at quarterback, no outside weapons at wide receiver, just 5 total wins Vegas is projecting here. Their bottom half and projected strength of schedule for running backs in 2021. And then the bottom line, Johnny, of why he's overdrafted, I have to take him ahead of guys like David Montgomery, CEH, Antonio Gibson, all with much better and clearer paths to success and with much better projected offenses. He's in the early 3rd round as RB14. I feel like I'm drafting him at his ceiling currently. Don't get me wrong. Love Swift. Think he could break out. He could be a guy. He was top 20 on very limited work last year. But for me, where he's going right now, I'd rather have that fall a little bit. And maybe that will. Maybe we haven't seen the full trajectory of his ADP. But right now, at this date, he's being overdrafted.
Well, I respectfully disagree with that, Travis. I mean, yes, you had some great points there, and I do understand some places where you're coming from, but I do want to dive in just a little bit deeper to those stats that you were talking about, because they are great stats, and people do need to realize what's happening in this situation to really understand why DeAndre Swift is being overlooked by a lot of people, and why he actually is a great value when you look at it. You talked about DeAndre Swift last year, not, in this offense not being great and things like that. DeAndre Swift finished as the RB16 in a points per game basis with 16. He finished as RB16 on a points per game average for running backs. He only saw 114 carries last year, only 114 all last season. He had 57 targets last year, which you would expect that not to diminish at all. That would expect to be put up, but
it could diminish.
Wait, hold on. I'll get into it. Just wait, just a second. It'll get juicy here. I promise. It'll get real juicy. 6 out of 7 games last year when DeAndre Swift saw 50% of the market share, he was an RB3 or better. So we know that the floor is definitely really high. He doesn't need a lot of volume in order to see good production. Now, you brought up the Anthony Lynn stuff. I thought it was very, very informative and good to look into. What I do want to bring into is Anthony Lynn was not the offensive coordinator in 2020 or 2019. It is good to note when you look at those running back shares, though, on what they actually did with those 1A and 1B, because you're absolutely correct. They do use a 1A and 1B. But when you look at that, right, RB1 on average averages about 44% of that market share, right? Which Williams will get. I have him projected to get that amount of market share. He is a solid running back. Now, when you look at the RB2 for his teams, for a Anthony Lynn team, that running back averages about 24 to 36% given the running back talent. Now, you talked about and brought up the Buffalo Bills, which is very important because that was the last time he was actually an OC for a team. And you look at what they had. They had Mike Gillislee and they had LaShawn McCoy. LaShawn McCoy got 47.6% of that market share, which rightfully so. He's the better running back, right? Well, Mike Gillislee only got 20.5, and I can guarantee to you that DeAndre Swift is better than a Mike Gillislee, and that he will see more like the 2 years ago where Eckler saw 36%, of that market share. Now, you brought up the receiving work, which I think is fantastic. Williams can receive out of the backfield. I do have him projected to get about 5% of the receiving work. But this is where it is very important for DeAndre Swift and what makes up the most of his value, and that's the receiving work. They will be down a lot. They will have to force to put DeAndre Swift in because he's a much better receiver. And when you look at that Buffalo team back in 2016, it was very similar to this team. They had one wide receiver on the outside in Bobby Trees. He had 17% market share in that. But you look at the number one running back for them, LaShawn McCoy, because Mike Gillislee couldn't catch. He saw the 5%, right, in the receiving work. You look at LaShawn McCoy, he saw 13% market share in the receiving work for that game. So you project DeAndre Swift to get about 14%, 13 to 14% market share, as well as 30% rushing share in an offense that it's not like they're going to go 3 and out every single time. Jared Goff is a competent running quarterback.
They're projected to only get 5 wins. They're not going to do a lot.
Right, but I'm
Anthony Lynn's offenses have not been very good. I just pointed out points per game. They're and those offenses, and for the Chargers, a lot more talent on them than what Detroit's projected to put out this year. A lot more talent.
The Buffalo Bills one was not. I mean, LaShawn McCoy was a top 10 running back, and Buffalo was not a sexy team. They didn't move a lot. They didn't score the ball. There's going to be a lot of opportunity for a guy like DeAndre Swift. He's electric.
Sure, you can bet on that. I'm not going to buy him I'm not going to buy him at his ceiling. I'm not going to buy him as a top 12 back essentially in the 3rd round when I can go get a guy like CEH, who I know you're probably going to try and bring a case for, and then also like Antonio Gibson, who we love, and there's just other guys, David Montgomery, who's going even further than him, that has much better prospects as far as getting a dominant work share. So for me, like banking on his upside is receiving. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think Detroit, maybe Atlanta, are the only 2 teams or the top 5 teams that are trying to replace a bunch of targets from last year. 100%. I get that. I get that that's available there. I have some concerns with how bad this team is going to be compared to even the Buffalo team and that you mentioned, and then the last 4 Chargers teams that Lynn's been associated with. So you're telling me, Johnny, like the hope and the prayer is like, well, hey, top 10 back 5 years ago with LaShawn McCoy in a comparable offense. It was better than what Detroit's been and what they're projected to be this year. A 5-win team. So
do you know how many wins that Buffalo team had back in 2016?
How many?
I'm gonna look it up right now. I was asking you, but I don't think it was more than 5. Buffalo Bills.
All my whole point here, Johnny, is that I think we're betting a lot on just the talent, which is fine to do in fantasy. That you want to draft your guy, I get it. I'm going to bet on some of the opportunity first.
7 and 9.
Married with talent. So that's my situation here.
All right.
There's a reason why Anthony Lynn got fired as head coach. There's a reason why he couldn't maximize talent, and now you're expecting him to maximize talent when that's really all he's got is DeAndre Swift. So it rubs me the wrong way at that current draft price. So, but let's move on, Johnny. Let's talk about something that I think we'll probably be in a little bit more agreement on, and that's the 49ers running backs that you have as being overdrafted. So, look, we said 5. Johnny's sneaking you in another one here, Whisper Nation, because he's giving you a 2-for-1 here. And so if we look at that running back field, Johnny, Mostert going in the 7th round as RB29. Sermon going in the 8th round as RB32. You're saying even drafting them as RB3s right now is too high.
Yeah, and seem a little bit crazy. This is why our show is awesome and why it's good to tune in, because with new information, we can kind of start to see things differently, and we can kind of also have different opinions on guys, and you get to see 2 different viewpoints, right? Like, for example, the DeAndre Swift, perfect example. I like him. Travis doesn't, and allows Whisper Nation to
I don't like where he's being drafted. I like him.
All right. Okay. Well, when it comes to the running backs for the 49ers, you might say, well, weren't you guys just saying the top 5 running backs show that you should go out and get Trey Sermon? And I know that Big Travy is a fan, and a lot of people are of Trey Sermon. And it's not that I don't think it's 100% has to do with this offense and what they typically do. If you look at the history of Kyle's running backs over the last 3 years under his system, right? The running back 1 on average averages about 32% market share, rushing share. RB2 on this on his depth chart averages about 26% rushing share, and then the RB3 averages about 18.6% rushing share. Now this bodes, and as you can tell, oftentimes it's that third running back that ends up being the actual true value. If it's not the guys that go into the season as the RB1 and RB2, as most people are drafting. Now, when those guys are healthy, are they going to perform? Yes, they'll be good running backs. I think Mostert will have the first crack at it. He'll probably have, a couple of running back 2 finishes, a couple of running back 1 finishes while he plays, because he is a good running back. However, he's not going to stay healthy the whole season. We know that. And once he goes down, it's just a carousel. Next person comes in. So then that's when Trey Sermon will get his shot. Now, if he retains that job, then sure, he could potentially see a major breakout season because this offense is good enough to move it. But like I said, if you look at the history of Kyle Shanahan, typically that RB2 that comes in doesn't get a very big bulk of anything else. Like he'll come in and he'll just rush. He doesn't get any of that receiving down work. On average, he'll see about 4% of the receiving work. It's that RB3 that comes in that also gets that receiving work as well as the rushing work. And in this case, I do believe, and there's some hype around it, you probably have heard us mention his name on the show a little bit, but Elijah Moore, I do think is someone that Elijah Mitchell is someone that you should actually be more so looking at as a way late dart throw or possibly to pick up off the waiver, because I do think at the end of this year, when you actually end up compiling all his stats, he'll actually be the guy who scores the most fantasy points out of all 3 of these. It's just too much of a split when you look at what they do for me to be comfortable in investing that high of draft capital. I mean, in the 8th round, there are a lot of guys in that 8th round I'd much rather have than taking a chance on one of these running backs, Travis.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and the track record's there, at least in San Francisco. If we go back, though, before San Francisco, Shanahan was producing top 15 backs with guys when that was all one dude, Alfred Morris, you had Devonta Freeman, guys like that, right? And
Alfred, yeah. Go ahead.
I think that with those kind of production, but then not even just talking about that, I think what we've seen now, there's 2 ways this can go, Johnny. They can either they've been scarred basically by being injury plagued over the last couple of years at their running back position.
Haven't we all?
Yeah. But they could either say, look, this is too much. We're going to share the load. We're going to continue to share the load, or, hey, this is too much. We're actually going to give it to one guy. That's why we traded up for Trey Sermon. We wanted one guy to carry the load. He's a bigger back. He runs upright. He's ran in the scheme before. We think that we're done drafting picking up the undrafted guys or the late round guys as guys that we think can carry a massive load here. With Jeff Wilson hurt, we know at least Trey Sermon's probably going to play the Jeff Wilson touchdown role guy. So the upside there in the red zone is there. And I just think Sermon, who is now glowing raves out of obviously only OTAs, is a guy that I'm keeping an eye on. And I think in the 8th round is exactly where we want to target some of these running backs, because ideally, in my mind, you're going RB anchor or RB robust to start, and then hammering wide receiver for 3 to 7, those rounds, 3 to 6 maybe. And then you're loading back up on running backs, right? You're trying to find those guys in ambiguous backfields, those guys with upside. But I do get what you're saying. Look, the time, the path to him being the all-around back is a little bit more of a long shot than some other guys that you can see down in that area for sure. I think the upside, though, speaks for itself. That's where I'm getting at with it. Here we go. Rybird81 just recently found y'all's channel doing Dynasty Startup Prep. Love what I see. Keep it up, guys. We appreciate you, Rybird. We appreciate everybody in here. If you're watching, give us a like, a thumbs up. We got 11 of you watching over on YouTube right now, and we've only got 6 likes. Get those likes up. Help us out. We continue to grow the channel each and every day. Johnny, I'm going to talk briefly about Travis Etienne. He was my second back here, and I want to talk about, and look, I'm not going to have a ton of stats here because we just haven't seen Urban Meyer in the NFL. We haven't seen Trevor Lawrence in the NFL. I don't know what this offense projects to be. If it's as good as Jacksonville last year, well, we saw, James Robinson produce as a top 7 back in fantasy. But Travis Etienne drafted as the second running back off the board, right? Najee Harris was first.
Yeah.
Second running back off the board. We saw him be drafted, but then we saw Urban Meyer come out, Johnny, and say, we really wanted Kadarius Toney. We really didn't even want Etienne. And now We've got John Shipley. We talked about him before. Jaguars beat writer says the Jaguars' first-round running back will be taking all of his rookie minicamp reps at wide receiver. Another development that gives him a clue, or gives us a clue to what kind of role Urban Meyer envisioned for him. We have Urban Meyer calling him slash, working him in the slot, which is kind of strange given that you've had Laviska Shenault be able to be a good slot receiver for them in spurts. I don't know that this offense is going to be one I really want to touch. And as far as a backfield is concerned, Johnny, I'm not going to put a lot of my eggs in my basket. You look at who we're having to draft him over: Myles Gaskin, Mike Davis, Kareem Hunt, guys with tremendous upside, established roles in their offense, and just not something I'm willing to do at this point as an RB2, firmly an RB2 in the 5th round, Johnny.
So what's really, really interesting, Travis, is we do actually kind of know what this offense is going to project to be out or project out as, because we know who the offensive coordinator is. It's your favorite, your buddy, your pal, Darrell Bevell. Come on down, is the new offensive coordinator for these Jacksonville Jaguars. If you aren't familiar with that name, he was the one and only disruptive coach over there in Detroit. And as we all know, he refused to give DeAndre Swift his true touches until way late in the season. So what we can take away from Darrell Bevell and what their rushing, stat line projects out to be, RB1s in his system generally get about 35 to 42% of the rushing market share. So Robinson should see that. Now, where I don't like Robinson, unfortunately, he won't see a lot of the target market share for the receiving work. I do expect Travis Etienne to get that. Should be about 12%. That's what Darrell Bevell generally uses that running back for in history. And then you look at what the rushing market share for a guy like Etienne is going to be. It's going to be probably like 25 to 30%. Now, when you look at this offense and you're looking at all the other weapons, that's also where you kind of start projecting things, Travis, to go a little bit wonky for Etienne, because you do have Laviska Shenault, who they should line up in the slot, and I have projected to get 18% of this market share because that's generally what Bevell does. So there are a lot of concerns. I know I get the hype, like you said, of people wanting to draft him because they paired. You also have like the whole fact that they played Etienne and now I'm blanking on the quarterback. Trevor Lawrence, excuse me. Thank you. Trevor Lawrence and him have, but I ultimately think that they'll be spreading the ball around. They're not going to go with one guy because Darrell Bevell never does that.
They played together in college, sure, but Etienne, the reason they're working him so much at wide receiver is they didn't use him much as a wide receiver in college. Like, he didn't catch a ton of passes. So where you would say a quarterback has chemistry with a guy is as a receiver, but if you guys didn't really work together all that much at it, like, what's the bragging rights there?
Mm-hmm.
There's other guys. We talked about Myles Gaskin, Mike Davis sitting there that I'm willing to, we got fear of the God is the beginning of all wisdom. Nice name there. That was a long one. Yeah. I drafted Mike Davis in the 5th round as an RB2. Yeah, I mean, I think that's where we're at with this, is like there's other RB2s I'm going to go ahead and take ahead of Travis Etienne.
Yep.
Johnny, before we move on, I want to let Whisper Nation know that we are nothing without their support, and we are so proud of this community we have built together. If you feel it upon your heart to help us continue to grow this family and chase this dream, consider joining us over on patreon.com. You can show your support at all the different tier levels there. Patron benefits include access to our exclusive Discord channels, entries to sports card giveaways, increased odds for a landing spot in our 2021 Listener League, and bonus fantasy content that is only available to our patrons. Head on over to patreon.com/The Fantasy Whispers today and join the nation. Johnny, this next guy, actually our last two guys to end the show are going to be spicy. People are not going to like this. But Johnny, you picked CEH, and it made me do the old the old Tim the Toolman Taylor when you did that in the 3rd round. RB16 is where he's going right now, 305. Look, we know the story here. Rough rookie season after being drafted and handpicked by Mahomes in that 1st round, but did not convert a lot of his goal line looks. Does not look like that goal line back. Johnny, we have a guy like Jerick McKinnon coming in here. We've got some other things working around, but to be honest, the draft capital should say that CEH is going to have a bounce back year, and he's going in the 3rd round. We don't have to pay that astronomical price. But why should Whisper Nation feel that he's being overdrafted still?
So this was a little bit of a surprise to me as well. Like I said, my opinion was I did think that Travis Etienne could have a bounce back season.
CEH.
Or yeah, what did I say? Travis Etienne.
Etienne.
I think that's the third time on this show that I've done that. So I for some reason I just have Travis Etienne on my mind. Is what it's spoiling.
I would hope that Etienne has a bounce back season, because last year in the NFL he didn't score any points.
Right, exactly. Good point. Fair enough. But here's what was interesting about CEH. When you look at the Kansas City Chiefs offense, originally, the whole idea is that we thought Andy Reid, or we're under this impression that Andy Reid generally likes to use one running back in his system. However, what we've tend to see over the last 3 years is that's not the case. They have, and generally even longer than that, they have really split this up into mostly a RB1 and an RB2 kind of situation. So in the RB1 will get roughly about 42%, 41% of the market share. They haven't seen any higher over the last 3 years than 42% market share, Travis. Now, I will say that just because they don't use them, like in the 55 to 60% ranges, which is what we generally like to see with guys that are like bell cow running, quote unquote, bell cow running backs. That's what, is that definition these days. You don't generally see that with the RB2 in Andy Reid's system and the RB3. So in this case, it'll be, Darrell Williams and I believe Jerick McKinnon. Those guys will make up about 30% of the rushing market share between those two guys. I do expect CEH to get about 42%. We also know that Pat Mahomes over the last 3 years, he's averaged 15% rushing share on this team. What you mentioned, the goal line carries, he wasn't great at the goal line carries. You also look at the RB2 in this situation, Darrell Williams. He's a much bigger back. You also look at what they generally do on offense. They give that RB3 a lot of receiving work out of the backfield. So I do think that Jerick McKinnon is going to be that guy that they use for the pass catching. We saw him excel at that. The limit is touches. I do project CEH to get the bulk of the carries here. He is going to be the guy. However, he's just not going to score enough touchdowns in order to make up the gap. And he doesn't average a high enough yards per carry in order to really excel that, his stats. And so, yes, do I think that he's on a good offense with an improved offensive line? But the other reality of it is how Kansas City uses this running back position, and it's not like they use other teams use it, because when they get in the red zone, they trust Pat Mahomes more than they trust a running back. And so for me, when I just let the stats speak for themselves. I do the research, I put in the numbers, and I let them reveal to me whatever they do. And CH was one that honestly was a little bit of a surprise. But when I have them, projected for about 180 fantasy points, 170 fantasy points in a half PPR league, Travis, that's a huge disappointment, especially for some of the guys that are going around. Like, for example, we talked about Mike Davis here. We got drafted in the 5th round. I have him scoring more than 170 fantasy points, Travis. So that's where you can kind of get information. I'm not saying he's a bad running back. I just don't think the opportunity share is going to be there like we had hoped, nor the history of Andy Reid has shown over the last few days. So I think it's a trap for CEH.
Yeah, I can get behind it a little bit, except for the fact that CEH is only 1 year removed from being drafted in the 1st round. So yeah, you have track record of Andy Reid over the last few years, but similar to the San Francisco situation that we were talking about earlier, I think it's about what they've had at running back, more about that than it is about, CEH not going to be getting the opportunity share. I think if
Kareem Hunt had 44%. Kareem Hunt had 44% rushing share in this offense.
The year that he was the overall rushing leader?
No, I'm saying
his
the
rookie
year
season?
after. The rookie season, he was the only running back. You have to remember he wasn't even the RB1 going in, and then Darrell went down, it was Spencer Ware went down in preseason with the torn ACL. That's why he got the 63%. Other
Okay.
than that year, it's always been about 44%, 42
And they
to
drafted
44.
CH in the first round is what I'm getting at. So they're probably, it's more likely to be closer to that than it is to 40% in my mind, because they are committed to that. The other thing is, you talk about the red zone. He didn't get a lot of red zone opportunities, but even worse than that, he didn't convert on them. He had 28 carries inside the 20 and only 3 touchdowns, 13 inside the 10 and only 1 touchdown. I mean, that number comes up by even half. Maybe a 20% increase from last year, and you're liking what you get out of him. He's more of an RB1 than an RB2. And I think you're drafting him right now, RB16. That's kind of at the median. I think that's his floor, just based on offense and opportunity. And then you're going to get a situation where he's able to hit a ceiling in this offense if they do start using him more in the red zone, and he can convert on that. So, but I like what you had there. I mean, definitely, I love that you're able to come back after digging in this, into the draft kit, which was now available at pre-sale over on the fantasywhispers.com. Johnny's over there digging into these projections. He says, look, these are what the numbers are telling me. I've got to let Whisper Nation know. All right, our final running back here to talk about is another spicy one, Johnny.
I'm taking my camera off or my face off the camera for this one, because this is wild.
Honestly, I'm gonna bring some of the stats from Ian Hartitz, but you can blame Ian Hartitz over at PFF for why I'm a little bit shook on Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor right now, Johnny, is being drafted as the RB6 in the first round, firmly in the middle of the first round at 107. There's no question in my mind he's talented. There's no question in my mind he has, top 5 upside for sure. He had an excellent end of the year schedule, however, and he had some things break his way. Obviously, Marlon Mack injured in the first week. We saw that Wilkins got COVID down the stretch and allowed for more opportunity for Jonathan Taylor. But check this out. In 2020, Ian Hartitz points out that Jonathan Taylor had 511 snaps, 271 touches, carries, and targets. In 2020, Nyheim Hines, Jordan Wilkins, and Marlon Mack combined for 585 snaps, 272 carries and touches. There is just no doubt in my mind, Frank Reich, regardless of who Jonathan Taylor is and shows them, wants to continue to use Nyheim Hines at the very least in the passing game, because he is just a very talented X wide receiver. So you can't even say that he's going to be an all-around bell cow like some of the other guys you're having to draft him ahead of, right? And I think that's the problem that I have there, is that the receiving work doesn't seem to be there. And then the RB targets, so you're like, well, he did great with the targets he got. Yeah, he was also playing with Phillip Rivers. If we look at Phillip Rivers over the last years, in 2019, 2018, and 2020, I don't know why I said it that way. 2020, 2019, 2018, targets to the running backs. Indy was number 4. The Chargers were number 1, and the Chargers were number 5. Top 5 in passes to the running back. That seems to follow Phillip Rivers and not a Frank Reich or a Carson Wentz. So we have the targets going to running backs in an offense that the receiving share is probably going to go down. The targets to the running backs is probably going to go down next year. You'll have emergence of a guy like Michael Pittman, Paris Campbell coming back. You have other guys in the offense to soak up more of these targets. And you have a situation where this offense could actually take a step back. I know we've been high on talking about Carson Wentz being, an upgrade from Phillip Rivers, but will he be? Phillip Rivers didn't make a lot of mistakes last year, didn't get sacked a lot, didn't do a lot of things that, stats wise, advanced metrics, was better than Carson Wentz last year. And now you could say that's Carson Wentz's surrounding cast. I get that. But I just want to, is Taylor good? Yes. Is he get Derrick Henry good? I don't know workload wise if he's going to be. And then some stats to back up Taylor might not be the God mode that we saw in that really soft schedule down the stretch. Missed tackles forced per rush, 0.18. That's tied for 18th. Yards per carry, tied for 10th. Yards after contact per carry, tied for 19th. Stuff rate, amount of times he got stuffed behind the line of scrimmage, tied for 16th. So it's not like he was a world beater and dominating down the stretch. He was just given all the volume. And with Marlon Mack back on it, I mean, Johnny, you said, a couple months ago, I don't know what you know or what you're going to say now after looking at the numbers. You probably have some stuff to back up here based on projections. But even you said Marlon Mack signing was not a nothing signing. We had to take this with a grain of salt. And I think that with Nyheim Hines, this is screaming a little messy for me to be drafted in the first round, in the middle of the first round.
I do disagree. I do think that Jonathan Taylor is a guy that if you draft, he will finish top. I haven't projected top 5 finish. Now I do understand, and yes, I do think that Marlon Mack signing was significant. I do think that they do intend to use him, but we have to look at what they are doing. Once again, you look at the market share breakdown and this stuff. It's, I mean, to quote Travis and Anthony Lynn, I mean, it's like pure science. It just breaks down, like running back A, running back B, and I'll just break it down for you, Travis. When you look at this Indianapolis offense and a Frank Reich offense, yes, last year's receiving totals went a little bit astronomical because of obviously Phillip Rivers going there. But even before that, you look, they average on about 20% target market share to the running back position. Now, when you look at what Marlon Mack was doing as far as receiving work early on, because he was like that early, just the main running back RB1, he didn't get much market share. He got about 4%, 4 to 5%. Now, you look at Nyheim Hines, I completely agree. He will still be used mostly. He'll see the most of the target market share from the running back position because he's very good and they like him in that spot. They'll give him about 10% of this, so he'll see the vast majority. But you're still getting Jonathan Taylor. If you look at the history of what Frank Reich has done, he still gives his running back that is a good receiver. Obviously, we saw how good Jonathan Taylor was last year, didn't drop a ball. He will give that person this.
He dropped a couple in the last game. I thought he didn't drop any all year, but it was in the last game. He screwed stuff over.
Well, he messed this up. Well, okay, but he's still going to see, he could still see about 5 to 7%. I have him projected for about 7%. Now, when you're looking at just the pure running side, Marlon Mack will also get some of that. He'll be projected for about 20% because that's what the RB2 gets in Frank Reich's system. But over the last 3 years, Travis, the RB1 for his system has gotten 49.9%. 52.4% and 51.1%. So Jonathan Taylor will still get the bulk of the carries. He'll still get 50%. He'll still see, he should see the first crack at the red zone unless they do bring in Nyheim Hines. And I do think ultimately he's a good enough talent at the running back position behind a nice offensive line that we know likes to run the ball. So I actually am okay with where Jonathan Taylor is going. I think he'll actually, if he specifically if he falls to that back half of the first round, Travis, that's what I really like.
Yeah, we're taking guys like Zeke behind him. We're taking guys like Aaron Jones, and obviously we know Aaron Jones with the Green Bay news. Let's say we knew Aaron Rodgers is back. I'm taking him. There's just some guys back there. I mean, even Cam Akers, who's sneaking into the first round, to me projects a better workload, both pass catching and rushing than Jonathan Taylor. There are some great things with Taylor. I think he's as good a prospect as there is to come out as a running back. There's just other guys. I mean, Nyheim Hines is talented. We saw what that guy did and what he's capable of doing. And then Marlon Mack, we're only 2 years removed from Marlon Mack being a stud 1,000-yard rusher for the Colts. So I just,
like I said, Marlon Mack is still like people have to, when they hear that small amount of number and they think like he's like Marlon Mack still is projected to get over 100 rushing shares for me. Like it's, even though I say 20% seems very small, you have to it's a whole season and that translates to a lot more carries than people think. So 20% is still over 100 carries for Marlon Mack. And I definitely think he gets that. I just think Jonathan Taylor, I have him projected over 200 carries. And I think he easily gets that.
Yeah, and I think, you talked about the market share. I'm fine if the market share is that, but we look at the ranks for Frank Reich at running back targets over the last 3 years or last 4 years. Obviously, number 4 with Phillip Rivers. Then they were number 21. 2018, they were number 9. And then back in 2017, they were also 26. So, yeah, they can throw a considerable market share to them. But how is that ranking among the NFL? How is that ranking among other running backs, which is how he's going to finish? And to me, there's just better receiving guys in that back half. Like Zeke is going to catch 70 balls this year, probably if Dak stays healthy or more. So that's something that I'm more inclined to go after than a guy like Jonathan Taylor. Love Jonathan Taylor's talent. I mean, I drafted him in our league of record. I definitely was one of the highest on him just based on what I'm seeing. And with Mack coming back and their commitment verbally and financially to Mack, makes me think like, oh, they want this to be a revolving door at running back from drive to drive, more than we want it to be. And especially in the red zone where we know Reich is just like Matt Nagy and Andy Reid getting cute in the red zone where they do some different things. That's where I have a little bit concerned, but I get it, man. Like, look, take your guy. Like, he's definitely a guy that you're going to take right there. Kryptonic Cody, I'm just nervous about Carson Wentz. He may not be good after owning Miles Sanders last year and dealing with such poor QB play. I agree. He's great talent, though. He's just got going so high. I'm out. And I really don't think it's that much higher than where he probably should go. Like, I think around down, like maybe in the middle of the second or beginning of the second is probably where I would be comfortable taking him. But that's not far off.
Everyone would like to get Jonathan Taylor in the second. That's not happening. I'm telling you, he's going to finish. I have him finishing 3 points ahead of Zeke. So, Zeke will definitely get work and things like that. I do understand the concern with Carson Wentz, but what we will say is when we saw Carson Wentz be an MVP, it was under Frank Reich. And if there is a guy who's going to fix him and who we've seen fix many quarterbacks and get them money, it's Reich. So I have confidence in his system and what he could do with Wentz. And he's going to run the ball a lot. So I like that.
Whisper Nation, let us know what you think of the top 5 overdrafted running backs that we presented today. Obviously, we had some differing opinions here, but we want to know what you think, Whisper Nation. Who is being overdrafted as well in your mind? I think that we enjoyed this show thoroughly, Johnny. We had some revelations that were coming to us, even as we were doing the show or even as you were breaking down some of these stats from the draft kit. If you go on over to thefantasywhispers.com, you have 8 more days to get the draft kit at only $10. That special price goes away July 1st when we rock and roll this thing out there for you guys. And you guys can enjoy your 4th of July barbecues knowing that you have the Fantasy Whispers draft kit to help you dominate drafts in July and August. Johnny, any last words here?
Yeah, you guys can win some bets with some of these stats that you'll be finding in here.
Yeah, play some prop bets out there. Yeah. Use those projections for some future totals, win totals, things like that. For Johnny Game Time Hicks, I'm Big Travy. We are the Fantasy Whispers. We love you, Whisper Nation. We're out. Peace.
Peace.
Right here.
Oh, hey, you made it to the end of the video. If you like what you saw and you want to learn how to dominate your own draft and win your own league, head on over to thefantasywhispers.com and grab your copy of the Fantasy Whispers Draft Kit today. Or click the link in the description below. And if you're still not sold, check out one of these videos.